Canon EOS 1DS Mark III, full frame, 21 million pixels, absolutely fantastically built camera. These were introduced in about 2007, 2008. They were selling then for about 10 times more than you can buy them for today. These on the second-hand market today, in good condition, will sell for between £300 and £400. You can pick them up in used condition for significantly less. So that represents incredibly good value for money. Okay, so if you're looking for one of these on the second-hand market, you do obviously need to be careful. These are professionally used cameras. Ideally, I wouldn't recommend something that had been professionally used. I mean, you're far better off finding a decent one, paying a bit more, and getting something that's been amateur owned. How do you know? What do you need to check if you're buying one of these second-hands? With most digital cameras, people say, look at the actuation figure. And of course, that does give you a good idea how much it's being used. Slight issue with these cameras is that a lot of them don't give you an actuation figure. You can't get it. Be a little bit careful with the software online. Some of the software does tell you it works with these cameras. What it actually gives you is the JPEG number, which can be reset. So you do need to be quite careful. With this particular camera, the EOS 1DS Mark III, I can find no software that gives an accurate figure. If you know otherwise, please let me know. I would love to know what you're using. So, if the actuation figure isn't available, what do? Well, you have to do what you did in the old days. In the old days, pre-digital, what we looked at was the condition. And the condition actually tells you a lot more than the actuation number anyway. When you're buying these second-hand, you need to look at three things. You need to look at the cosmetics, you need to look at the optics, and you need to look at the mechanics. I'm just going to quickly go through those things now to give you a better idea of what you need to check. Okay, first of all, look at the cosmetics. In many ways, that's common sense, but it's really important with a camera of this type because, as I said earlier, they can be professionally used. They often are professionally used. You know, probably more are than aren't. So look at the bottom. Any wear coming through there? Any wear coming through there? More often than not, you will see a lot of silver coming through on the bottom corners. This particular camera is in absolutely astonishing condition, given its age and that it is a pro-type camera. Look at the top to see if there's any metal coming through here. Look at the hot shoe. Make sure it hasn't been knocked. Often they're knocked on the top, and you'll see the hot shoe is distorted. Check that. Look around the strap lugs to see if there's any wear there. Also look on the back on all the various controls. Make sure there isn't excessive wear here. As I said, this one is actually in very, very clean condition, unusually so. If you see a lot of wear, a lot of use, I would probably avoid the camera. These are quite common cameras. With a bit of patience, you will find something in nice condition. Have a look at the lens mount. Just have a look at the chromium plating on the lens mount. Look at the bayonet fittings inside and just see if there's any brass showing through. If you can see brass showing through here where the chromium plating is worn off, that's a sign it's had a lot of use. Again, avoid it if you can. A little bit of brass just showing through on the corners of the mount, not the end of the world, but just avoid the heavily used stuff. Once you've satisfied yourself that it hasn't been completely destroyed and really, really suffered a hard life, then move on to the optics. I won't talk about lenses. I've got another video which I'll post a link to above, which explains what to check with the lenses. But check the optics here. Check the mirror, make sure that's in nice condition. Look through the viewfinder and look into the viewfinder to make sure there's no misting or fungus behind the viewfinder eyepiece there. Often you can look through and you can see little black spots inside. Clean the mirror if you can, clean the screen if you can, but if you can still see the marks inside, that's a fair sign that you've got muck and dust actually in the viewfinder system, which isn't great. Dust, not the end of the world, but what you don't want to see is fungus inside the viewfinder. Again, I'll post a link to explain more about fungus. That's something you need to be very, very conscious of. So once you've looked at the cosmetics, you've looked at the optics. The last thing you need to look at is just the mechanics. Now that might seem a bit strange on an electronic camera. These are generally very, very reliable. Electronically, they are very, very good. You're not likely to have an electronics failure unless you're very unlucky. Obviously check the sensor, make sure that's working. Take test pictures, make sure it's focusing, make sure the image quality is what you'd expect it to be. But also check the buttons. Now this is what I mean by the mechanics on these cameras. The little joystick there, the wheels, the on-off buttons, the little thing you turn to pop open that door. Make sure they're all working. It's those bits that are most likely to fail. Make sure the buttons are all doing what they should be doing. It's this mechanical stuff that's most likely to fail, particularly on the card slots. Make sure the cards do engage, the cards come out, and make sure both card readers are working. It's not uncommon to have the pins inside the card reader bend, so the card goes in, but it won't read. And if you look very carefully into it, you can see that one of the pins has come out of alignment. So check those. Now, these are the mechanical things you're checking because they're the most likely things to fail. Hopefully, the camera will get a clean bit of health. If it does, then yeah, I mean, go for it. Always get a return option if you can. That's obviously very important. It'll give you a couple of weeks just to check the camera out to make sure you're 100% happy with it. Final thing to check is the batteries. Obviously they are getting on a bit. You can get third-party replacement batteries. I mean, this is a non-Canon battery in here. If you find a camera with the original Canon battery, the chances are it won't be holding its charge that well. That's not the end of the world. That just happens. They can be replaced fairly easily. Now, the final thing to say about these cameras is that while they represent incredibly good value for money, they're not actually, a lot of the spares aren't available. Canon and most other manufacturers only make spares for a limited time, and we're getting to the point now where these earlier digital pro spec cameras, where Canon no longer supply the parts. Personally, I think that's an absolute disgrace. I think with a camera of this value, they should be providing parts for 15 years at least. My understanding is that after about 10 years, they no longer support the camera, which is it's a shame. I mean, to have to throw away a camera of this quality is disgraceful. But unfortunately, if you have an electronics fault with these cameras, or if you want to replace the sensor, or even if you want to replace some of these parts on the back that I mentioned, you may not be able to get the spare. So do bear that in mind. There is a chance that one day, some point down the line, if it's working perfectly today, it might fail. You might not be able to get it fixed, in which case it does become a write-off. That said, generally very reliable, so hopefully that won't be an issue for you. I hope that's useful. If you have any comments, please stick them in the comments box below. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.